During the past years, video conferencing software such as Zoom has become vital in delivering mental health services, including well-being training programs. Our latest paper looks at whether one of those programs, the Be Well plan, can feasibly be delivered via Zoom and whether it will lead to improvements in outcomes of well-being, resilience, and psychological distress. We were also interested in answering two specific questions. The first one looked at whether people with problematic mental health scores at the beginning of the program, people with low well-being, people with high distress, would show a bigger improvement compared to people with healthier scores at the start of the program. The second question looked at whether positive changes in well-being and positive changes in psychological distress would happen at the same time, or whether a positive change would happen in one or the other. We tested 89 participants in the beginning of 2020, right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions in South Australia. Participants joined Zoom sessions on a weekly basis, 5 to be exact. Each session lasts about 2 hours. In each of the sessions, participants work with evidence-based activities. Across the 5 weeks, they experiment with different activities, figuring out what works and what doesn't work, ultimately resulting in a personalized well-being plan. You can find more information on the training in the link below. Looking at the results, we found positive, meaningful, significant changes in all of the outcomes that we measured. They were outcomes of mental well-being, and outcomes specifically on life satisfaction, resilience, and psychological distress. That is, problems with your mood, anxiety, and stress levels. Looking at the scores for participants with problematic mental health at the start of the program, we noticed that effects were much larger, from small to moderate in a general cohort to moderate to large for those with problematic mental health. An interesting finding happened when we looked at the differential change in outcomes of well-being and outcomes of distress. We saw that some people only improved in one outcome, for instance in well-being, some only improved in the other outcome, psychological distress, whereas a proportion changed in both. The results here have some important implications. Firstly, it shows that training programs, mental health programs, well-being programs, can feasibly be translated to be delivered across teleconferencing software such as Zoom or alternatives. Secondly, it shows that participants with problematic mental health scores seem to benefit the most from these group-based training programs. This further paves the way to implement these group-based training programs, online or in person, in non-clinical populations, for instance via workforces. It also paves the way for this to be explored as a first-line treatment option for people who are on a wait list for individual care. Finally, our results add to the evidence that stresses the importance of measuring mental well-being together with outcomes of psychological distress and disorder when evaluating mental health interventions. This is particularly important as high well-being is a protective factor against developing mental illness in the future. But it also adds as an aid in the recovery of mental illness. Not measuring mental well-being together with psychological distress or disorder may underestimate the therapeutic impact of mental health interventions. We note a bunch of limitations in the paper, the main one being the uncontrolled study design. Our next paper will look at investigating the impact of the Be Well plan via a randomized controlled study design, with results overall replicating the positive finding that the Be Well plan can improve outcomes of mental health.